Turkey is no longer the country you thought it was. In 2025, while the world argues about America, Russia, and China, Turkey has quietly built one of the strongest militaries on Earth. The facts are impossible to ignore. On the Global Firepower Index, it now ranks 9th out of 145 nations. It commands NATO's second-largest army, and its defense budget has surged to $25 billion, a staggering 110% increase since 2015. For decades, Turkey was dismissed as a buyer, reliant on foreign suppliers for every major weapon. But that dependence is over. Today, Turkey is a maker. It produces tanks, howitzers, warships, attack helicopters, and drones that are already reshaping wars. Even more shocking, it is testing its own fifth-generation stealth fighter jet, putting it in an elite club of nations with cutting-edge air power. And geography makes this arsenal even more dangerous. Turkey controls the narrow strait that links Europe to the Middle East, a choke point no rival can ignore. So here's the real shock. A nation once treated as a middleweight is now forcing global powers to recalculate their strategies. And in this video, we'll break down exactly how Turkey pulled it off, and why its rise could change the balance of power across two continents. In the 1990s and early 2000s, Turkey's army was almost fully dependent on other countries. Tanks came from abroad, helicopters came from abroad, even rifles and bullets were often imported. If the United States or Europe stopped sales, Turkey's forces slowed down instantly. This made Turkey weak in two ways. On the battlefield, it couldn't fight without foreign supplies. In politics, every deal came with pressure and conditions. By 2025, that picture has completely flipped. Government reports confirm that over 70% of Turkey's defense needs are now built inside the country. This is one of the fastest defense transformations in modern history. Now, Turkish factories roll out the Altay main battle tank, the Fırtına self-propelled howitzer, and combat drones like the Anka and the Bayraktar TB2, weapons already tested in Syria, Libya, and Nagorno-Karabakh. Shipyards in Istanbul and Izmir produce corvettes, frigates, and even submarines designed with Turkish technology. And the most ambitious step, the KAAN 5th generation stealth fighter jet, a project that places Turkey in the same conversation as America, Russia, and China. For Turkey, every new weapon means more than firepower. It means independence. It means no longer waiting for permission from allies. It means no foreign leader can stop Ankara's plans with a simple export ban. This change lifted Turkey from being a buyer to becoming a maker, something only a handful of nations on Earth can claim. But that leads to the next question. Did this transformation actually make Turkey stronger than its rivals, or only appear stronger on paper? By 2025, Turkey is officially a top 10 military power. The widely cited Global Firepower Index ranks out of 145 nations, ahead of many countries once thought stronger. The numbers are huge. Turkey fields an active army of about 355,000 soldiers. It has another 379,000 reservists ready if called. With paramilitary forces included, Turkey's total manpower is close to 900,000. That makes it second only to the United States inside NATO. For comparison, Germany, France, and the UK each have far fewer troops. But numbers alone don't tell the whole story. In the 1990s, Turkey's forces were large but poorly equipped. Much of its gear was old, borrowed, or dependent on imports. That is no longer the case. Billions of dollars have been poured into modernization. By 2024, Turkey's defense spending reached $25 billion a year, 110% higher than in 2015. This money is not just keeping soldiers fed and trained. It is rearming them with modern tanks, artillery, and armored vehicles, while building new fleets of fighter jets, helicopters, and warships. Defense analysts now say Turkey has combined size with modernization, a rare balance that many larger armies struggle to achieve. It is one thing to have manpower. It is another to have manpower with advanced tools. Turkey now claims both. But this leads to a sharper question. What specific weapons give Turkey this edge, on the ground and in the skies? And how much do they really matter in battle? Turkey's rise is not just about numbers, it's about machines. For years, its modernization program was delayed. But by 2025, the key projects have finally arrived. On the ground, the Altay main battle tank has entered serial production after decades of waiting. Built with Turkish design and foreign engine solutions, the Altay is now rolling out to replace older German Leopard 2s and American M60s. Alongside it, Turkey has expanded its fleet of Fırtına 2 self-propelled howitzers. These 155mm artillery guns give the army long-range firepower that can strike deep into enemy positions. In the air, the backbone remains the F-16 Fighting Falcon, but Turkey is upgrading dozens of them with modern radars and weapons. The real leap forward came in 2024, when the prototype of the KAAN 5th generation stealth fighter made its first flight. The Kaan project is Ankara's boldest bet, an aircraft designed to rival the American F-35 and Russia's Su-57. And Turkey isn't just building it for itself. In 2025, Indonesia signed a deal for 48 KAAN jets, showing that Turkey is now exporting advanced combat aircraft, not just buying them. From tanks to artillery to stealth fighters, Turkey is proving it can design, build, and even sell the kind of weapons once limited to the world's largest powers. But as impressive as these machines are, analysts agree on one point. The real headline of Turkey's rise isn't its tanks or jets. It's something smaller, cheaper, and already changing the way wars are fought: drones. If one weapon defines Turkey's rise, it is the drone. The Bayraktar TB2 has already logged more than 1 million flight hours. It has been exported to over 35 countries, from Ukraine to Poland to African states. This single platform turned Turkey into a global drone superpower. Cheap, reliable, and deadly, the TB2 has been called the Kalashnikov of drones. But Turkey didn't stop there. It fielded the Akıncı, a heavy unmanned combat aircraft able to carry cruise missiles. And it unveiled the Kızılelma, a jet-powered drone designed for autonomous strike missions, even from aircraft carriers. These new systems push drones into roles once reserved for manned fighters. The emotional weight of these machines comes from the wars they have already shaped. In Libya, TB2s stopped an armored assault on Tripoli. In Syria's Idlib province, they destroyed dozens of Syrian vehicles in a single night. In Nagorno-Karabakh, Azerbaijani forces used Turkish drones to crush Armenian defenses, shocking military planners worldwide. Suddenly, Turkey was not just a user of drones. It was the exporter of a weapon that could turn battlefields upside down. For allies, Turkish drones became symbols of affordable power. For rivals, they became a nightmare. This is why analysts say Turkey didn't just join the drone race, it led it. And yet, as much attention as drones attract, they are not the only secret in Turkey's sky. Another project is rising quietly, one that could change the balance even more. An army cannot rise without protecting its skies. For decades, Turkey relied on NATO's Patriot missiles and foreign protection. But after disputes with Washington and a controversial deal for Russian S-400s, Ankara decided it needed its own solution. By the mid-2020s, that solution arrived. Turkey built a layered system it now calls a steel dome. At the short and medium range, the Hisar A+ and Hisar O+ intercept incoming aircraft, drones, and missiles. For long range, Turkey unveiled the SIPER system. By 2024, Seeper Block 1 had officially entered service, giving Ankara a weapon comparable to NATO's Patriots or even Russia's S-300 series. Together, these layers form a shield built and controlled at home. For Turkey, it is not just about defense, it is about sovereignty. A self-built system means no foreign veto, no sudden embargo, no dependence on Washington or Moscow. The emotional impact is clear. After decades of watching its skies guarded by outsiders, Turkey now places its trust in Turkish engineers. But this achievement comes with tension. The Russian S-400 deal left Turkey sanctioned by the US and frozen out of the F-35 program. So Ankara had to walk a dangerous line, balancing NATO obligations with its determination to act independently. Still, the result is undeniable. Turkey has joined the small group of nations that can design and field advanced air defense systems, on land and in the air. Its power now speaks for itself. But what about the seas, where history says Turkey's control has always been tested? Turkey's final piece of power is the sea. For centuries, control of the Bosphorus and Dardanelles made Turkey a gatekeeper between Europe and the Middle East. Now, its navy is being rebuilt to match that role. The most visible symbol is the TCG Anadolu. Launched in 2023, it became the world's first drone carrier. Instead of relying only on fighter jets, Anadolu is designed to launch and recover swarms of Bayraktar TB3s and the jet-powered Kızılelma UAV. This makes Turkey the first nation to fully bet on naval drone warfare. Alongside Anadolu sails the TCG Istanbul, Turkey's first I-class frigate, built at home with advanced sensors and weapons. By the late 2020s, the fleet is expected to grow again with the TF-2000 air defense destroyers. These massive ships will give Turkey long-range radar and missile coverage at sea, critical for protecting fleets far from home waters. Beneath the surface, Turkey is rolling out the Reis-class submarines. These are air-independent propulsion subs, meaning they can stay hidden underwater for weeks. Silent, modern, and hard to track, they represent the cutting edge of naval warfare. The gamble is clear. Turkey is no longer content with defending its coasts. It wants a navy that can project power into the Aegean, the Eastern Mediterranean, and even beyond. For NATO, this brings mixed feelings. An ally building serious sea power, but one that often acts independently. And this raises a deeper issue. What about NATO's darkest fear? Turkey's nuclear ambitions and shifting alliances. No story about Turkey's rise is complete without NATO and the nuclear question. For years, rumors spread that Turkey was secretly developing its own bomb. The reality is different, but just as tense. Even more painful, Turkey was kicked out of the F-35 fighter jet program, losing access to one of the West's most advanced weapons. Many analysts thought this rejection would cripple Turkey's air ambitions. Instead, Ankara turned it into fuel. Blocked from the F-35, it doubled down on building its own KAAN 5th-generation stealth fighter. In 2024, KAAN made its first flight, an achievement few thought possible. The message was clear. If the West closes a door, Turkey will build its own. This mix of NATO ties, nuclear myths, and independent weapons programs leaves allies uneasy. Turkey is both inside the alliance and testing its limits. And that forces one last question. With this arsenal in hand, what does Turkey's future mean for the world? Turkey's power is not only about weapons, it is about where it stands. Since the Montreux Convention of 1936, Ankara has controlled the straits that connect the Black Sea to the Mediterranean. This means no warship can enter or leave without Turkey's permission. During peace, it gives Ankara leverage. During war, it makes Turkey a gatekeeper between Russia, Europe, and the Middle East. On top of geography comes industry. By 2024, Turkey's defense exports crossed $7 billion, placing it among the world's top exporters. Its drones, armored vehicles, and naval ships are now sold from Eastern Europe to Africa and Asia. Every sale spreads Turkey's influence while funding new projects at home. For decades, Turkey was described as a middle power, strong regionally, but never decisive globally. By 2025, that label no longer fits. Analysts now describe Turkey as a shock power, a nation whose sudden growth forces others to recalculate their strategies. And that leads us to the haunting truth at the heart of this story. How did a nation once dismissed as dependent rise so fast that the world now fears its military power? Turkey's rise cannot be explained by a single weapon. It is the result of three forces converging at once: momentum, sovereignty, and geography. Momentum from a decade of constant investment and modernization. Sovereignty from building its own tanks, ships, jets, and drones instead of begging others to sell. And geography, the permanent advantage of sitting between Europe, the Middle East, and the Black Sea. For years, Turkey pleaded for advanced weapons from its allies. Today, nations stand in line to buy Turkish drones and fighter jets. The shift is more than military. It is psychological. Dependence once left Turkey vulnerable, trapped by embargoes and vetoes. Now, independence has turned into power. From the shadows of history, Turkey steps forward as a military actor able to shake continents. It is no longer just a NATO junior partner or a regional player. It is a state whose choices can change the balance across multiple regions at once. And that is why, in 2025, the world is stunned by Turkey's insane military power. The question is no longer, can Turkey defend itself? The question now is, who dares to challenge it? From a buyer of weapons to a maker of power, Turkey has rewritten its story. Once dependent on aid and second-hand deals, it now builds and sells its own tanks, jets, drones, and warships. Its steel dome air defenses protect its skies. Its drone carrier and submarines expand its reach at sea. And its homegrown stealth fighter signals that Turkey is no longer just catching up. it is competing at the very front. In 2025, that transformation has pushed Turkey into the top 10 militaries on Earth. What was once dismissed as a middle power is now a country that commands attention in Europe, the Middle East, and the Black Sea. This is why the world is stunned by Turkey's insane military rise. For more deep dives into the hidden truths of global power, make sure to subscribe and tell us, will Turkey's rise bring stability or spark new rivalries?